call the regular city council meeting to order for Tuesday, May 26th at 7 p.m. Lieutenant, would you lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call. Cease.
Yes.
Butts is excused. Buckbon.
Present.
Kreitz. Here. McClure.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except
Mayor
those
Terry,
items.
I'd like to call a point of order. Because this is a semi-open meeting and no public is involved, I'd like to dismiss the members of administration that are here. If we cannot have public in here, we should not have any other people that are not required to be here, other than those who are giving presentations. The lieutenant, if we aren't opening the meeting to the public, then administration can submit public comment or through the city manager's report any questions that they think that we could have.
Okay, I just see one.
I do have several department heads that, the fire chief, the police lieutenant and sergeant.
So they're here for items on
The electric
agenda.
utility manager will be here.
Is there someone specific or?
It's just, there's been lots of comments lately because a lot of concern about people having open meetings. And if administration would like to wait outside until they're called for specific items, then maybe that's possible, but to be inside the meeting and the public not be allowed in the meeting.
Does the city manager have any objection?
So some of them are sitting in their cars because if they get their item approved on the consent, they're taken off. Otherwise, they'll be here most of the evening, waiting to have their item called.
So do you have any objection of having them not waited? I think just that all I see is maybe the library director that maybe doesn't have anything on the agenda or.
City manager report. Then the rest of
Yeah, I know the rest of the items that are to be discussed, I did want to have them here if there are questions. Because there's a lot of purchases tonight, things that I have the details, but really not the explanation of why they're needed.
Could those folks just wait outside of the council chambers until they're not?
I mean, I guess you could do that. I don't.
No, not the presenters.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, I don't really know that there are many, but there's just one, and she's going to speak at the manager's report, which is fairly quick into it. I guess I'm just confused because I don't know that anyone sitting here provides any comment.
Yeah, I understand that, but also people who are in the public can also be here and not provide comment as well, but since they're not allowed to be here.
Well, I guess my point is I would think that the public would want as much information from staff as possible. So I mean, I think it helps the public to have staff here to present information from the packet. I understand your concerns with the social distancing. I don't know if, I think all I see is maybe just, so will the library director be leaving after the city manager's report? Okay.
And then I do expect the fire chief.
And trade people out? Does that meet some of your concerns?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, did you want to, citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing?
Madam Mayor, I did comments from one individual. From Jesse Groom. City Council and Administration, ILWU Unit 60 is seeking support from the City of Seward in our fight for good local longshore jobs. Unit 60 is requesting that you provide a letter of support in favor of ILWU Unit 60 loading out the remaining fracking sand onto the Alaska Railroad. For the last 80 years, Unit 60 has employed local Seward longshoremen at area standard wages and benefits. Unit 60 longshoremen reside in Seward and raise their families here and support Seward's local economy. ILWU Unit 60 is protecting Alaskan area standards from flash-in-the-pan companies who bring out-of-state workers into our communities, undercutting good-paying wages and benefits, which is unacceptable. Seward cannot afford a race to the bottom of the barrel. Labor disgraces no man. Unfortunately, you occasionally find men who disgrace labor.
And that's the only comment?
And that is the only
And
comment.
you have no one scheduled to get a phone call, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Are there changes to the agenda? I'll go ahead and I'd like to pull off resolution 20-043. I think there's some amendments that need to be made to that at the very least.
Yeah.
Just off consent.
Just off consent, yes,
Thank
please.
you.
Are there any other changes? I'd like to go ahead and see if I can put resolution 20-039 on the consent agenda as a trade. And that one's authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Kendall Ford for the purchase of a new police responder. That's not on the consent because it's a vehicle, but I understand if there's objections. Are there any other changes or amendments? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Posenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Akon,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. Approved on tonight's consent agenda. Resolution 20-036, authorizing the city manager to submit a municipal harbor facility grant application to the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities in the amount of $1,730,000 for the replacement of G, K, and L floats in the Seward Harbor. Resolution 20-037, authorizing the city manager to purchase a Volvo ECR 58D excavator for the electric utility department from Construction Machinery Industrial using the State of Alaska's procurement process for competitive bidding in the amount of $73,735 and appropriating funds. Resolution 20-038, authorizing the city manager to enter into a 60-month contract with Axon to provide body cameras, in-car cameras, evidence storage, and laser less-than-lethal weapons for the Seward Police Department in the amount of $173,360, with an initial payment of $56,424 in the first year and $29,234 of the contract. Resolution 20-039, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Kendall Ford for the purchase of one model year 2021 Ford Expedition 4x4 Special Service Package Model U1G and one 2021 Ford F-150 4x4 Police Responder Super Crew Model W1P with the total cost not to exceed $115,367 in appropriating funds. Resolution 20-040, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Municipal Code Corporation, Unicode, for the recodification, supplementation, and online code hosting services and appropriating funds. Resolution 20-042, authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the State of Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Division of Administrative Services, the Federal Aid in Sport Fish Restoration Act, Recreational Boating Access Program for the purpose of designing and permitting a replacement of the Northeast Harbor launch ramp. Resolution 20-043, authorizing the city manager to reclassify.
Oh, no, that was pulled off the consent.
Oh, sorry, thank you. approval of the May 11th, 2020 City Council regular meeting minutes, and the appointment of the following applicants to the Historic Preservation Commission with terms to expire May 2023: Sue Ward, Sherry Dale Furlong, and Tongai Lebrecht.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. It is National History Preservation Month. And usually we have all those folks here to be able to see their faces and thank them for their work, but I'll just go ahead and read this proclamation. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability, and whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for all Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that shaped us. And whereas This Place Matters is the theme for National Preservation Month for May 2020 and is sponsored by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And whereas over the course of the past year, the Seward Historic Preservation Commission has initiated and contributed to local historic preservation activities and projects such as Seward Downtown Historic District Overlay, nomination awards, nomination of the Seward Local Register, Historic Properties Inventory, and continued public outreach. Now therefore, I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby proclaim May 2020 as National Historic Preservation Month, and do call upon our community to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. And again, the theme this month of This Place Matters really resonates because it really, we all know how much Seward matters and how close we live with our history on a daily basis. So thank you to the Historic Preservation Commission and all who work to retain our heritage in Seward. Next on the agenda is the City Manager's report. City Manager?
I wanted to go back because it looks like we reverted back to that format where we post the checks and the dates and all that. So remember how we had previously said we wanted to deter fraud like Stephen from the bank had suggested? So it looks like we put this out publicly, and I did not spot that until this afternoon. So we did go to a revised format where we don't just say, here's the check and the date and who it's going to and all that, because it causes some issues. But we do have 4 disbursements requested at this time. Rhoda Paint Company for Public Works for the crosswalk sidewalk paint for roughly $8,000. It might be better if we did it in that format, like say that would be $8,000 rather than the exact amount.
Yeah.
And then so NRC Alaska for SMIC, which is removal of 1,000 gallons of used glycol for $6,300. The Rent-A-Can Parks and Recreation for the 2020 fees for portable toilets, that costs roughly $18,000 for the summer. And the T2 Systems for Park and Rec for the annual fees for parking, campground, dump station, and pay stations, which is a contract for $5,200. I do have the personnel transactions there. At council's direction, I have several of those new positions advertised. They did get advertised internally the 5 days, and now they're externally. The Harbor Park and Rec reports, I have some updates from Doug if you wanted me to. There were specific questions, like they should be starting at the end of this week on the safety ramp to this building. They should be getting materials and supplies upstairs on Thursday or Friday to finish the bathrooms. The ladies' restroom is available. We're still trying to order a thin water fountain, a cup holder fountain for downstairs, because the one that we ordered does not fit. It'll still go to good use somewhere. He did say that the Lowell Point Road, they should be doing the D1 this week. We're hoping to have them out of here next week or so. So that should be wrapping up. I have them written down in my report for later on, but did you have any specific questions on that? I do have Ms. Kingsland here if you wanted to ask questions about the library. I had a couple questions on I sent a lot of the responses to Mayor Terry from some of her questions. I don't know if they were resolved. I do appreciate the consent agenda. I do know that all the staff worked very hard on those items. It's a lot to put together. Some of those we didn't even get till 11:30, the day of the deadline. So that puts some strain on us to put that together, and I appreciate their help.
Councilmember Cease?
When are they gonna start on the handicap ramp?
Should be the end of this week
Oh,
or
so
start
that-
of next
oh,
week.
Okay, so I thought maybe it was postponed, okay.
And the materials are coming in, so we should be starting on that here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions?
Yes.
Did you
Hold on
want to
one
start?
moment. Writing down that.
Well, I'll ask you're writing that down. I did have questions about the library. From what was in the packet, and then I did see that press release on May 22nd. I guess my main question is, and you and I sent that in an email, what are other libraries doing around the state? And I just have a question. Is it really one individual or one household at a time in the whole library?
So Valerie is here, but libraries and museums are kind of the last piece in the governor's reopening plan. We are following suit with several around the state. In fact, the head librarian, Valerie, sent her information to confirm what we're doing in our plan because they didn't have that information. A lot of them are doing a book exchange at this point and allowing access. So I know that she's been diligently working on a reopening plan, which I've looked at and verified, and it looks good. It varies. Some of the libraries are doing like 6 people and they have like a card and they get 30 minutes. It's very limited. I think a lot of that's just due to the contact and the exposure. So she's done extensive movement of the tables and seating and things, so it's very distanced and very easy to maintain. But if you have specifics, she could come up and answer specific questions, but
Yeah, I guess that's my question. Only one person in the whole, or one family in the whole library? I mean, I feel like restaurants are open, so what would be the difference between a library? And then I just want to make sure that the volunteers are having access to.
So I know the volunteers they did some filming in there. We request and ask for face masks when we have real close personal contact like that. It's hard to enforce that as a municipality, so we do request it. It's not you have to have it. So they have had access recently. There's some staffing dilemmas for the library as well. I know they have some staff that have some concerns, so there's additional capacity issues there. But I think our capacity is extremely large for the mandates that were in place, which I think was 115. Does that sound right? So it's kind of like you think to the local bars and things, a lot of them are not at capacity at any time. So saying 25% might be like 40 people in a small space. They might not usually have that many. So the accessibility and reopening plan is staggered. It is very, very behind the rest of the entities. I know that we're not being alone in that. I know that, for instance, this was a shock to me on the call last week. Kenai just last Thursday allowed their staff to be open again. So we're kind of like 3 weeks ahead of that time frame. And libraries is definitely one of those. The museum is also another one that now that the mandates are changed, we are progressively moving forward. But I think, when we had staff come back in, that was a week after the governor. We kind of eased into it. We didn't have a lot of visitors. So we're trying to have the book exchange, and I know just today Valerie's extremely inundated with phone calls and answering the doorbell. And I don't want to speak for her because she has a ton of good, valid research issues and is kind of on the front edge of that. But I think.
So I hear you saying that people are using the ring your doorbell to announce your arrival. Excited to serve your community with the book exchange, that you can get up to 6 books. Is that what it? Public access computers, 45 minutes each. Curbside delivery up to 6 items. Okay.
And we want to see a phased implementation, but if you want her to add anything.
I guess I would, with the kids out of school and with the community needing some things to do, I would just like to see that progress quickly.
And I think a lot of that's tied to our staffing as well. I don't want to speak to her staffs explicitly, but we do have several people in the library that are looking at other open positions. It doesn't mean they're going to transfer or may not. I can't say who those people are or identify them, but it creates some significant gaps. So obviously with our process of internally advertising and filling those vacancies.
Yeah. It's
That's
just, I still
a
think we're
concern.
paying on the bond for that library, so it would be great to utilize it. Okay, that's enough.
I just want to correct that it's only 6 polls online. People can get, we have a limit of up to 50.
Oh,
We're
okay.
happy to try to accommodate people as much as possible.
Oh,
And we do have a plan to reopen, so we'll just bring it, add more to it, and move to walk-in service, and then move to just limited, what a lot of libraries are calling express or grab-and-go services. So they'll come into the space. So we're just taking it a week at a time to add the services.
Okay. Okay, so that's good information, so weekly ads. Okay, thank you.
And I have
That,
to plug the virtual reading program, so we'll be kicking that off. Right,
And keep checking the website, because as we progress into those next steps, it's advertised. We don't want people to just show up and have to wait and wait.
okay, thank you, that helps. Councilmember Bucklaw?
Yes, so my questions are specific to the CARES Act funding
Uh-huh.
and what we received. What exactly is Seward receiving in CARES Act funding?
So that would be a great question for your state legislator. At this point, the money that has been proposed through the governor and AML was not directly coming through the legislature. So last week, we had an update from our lobbyist. At this point, CARES Act funding could go two ways. It could go under the current act, where it's going to have to be identified, what are the exact expendables, what did you do related to COVID-19, and that's going to have to be very itemized and whittled away from the amount we're allowed to get. If that's the case, we're going to have a hard time utilizing the funding that's identified per Seward. To date, it's $5.3 million. There are supposed to be 3 disbursements. Now, this is all, it's kind of like don't count your chickens until they hatch. Well, we don't know that the legislative process is going to reallocate funds or do something with that it does come direct to us. If it goes the other route, so right now, Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski have a proposed bill that's called the SALT Act. It's a national act, so all of the U.S. Senate has to approve this, and it does have to be mandated through Congress. That would make all the CARES Act funding essentially loss of revenue funding, which the CARES Act specifically says that is not what it's to be used for, right? So you have these opposing uses. If they are going to do it as replacement funding, the way they calculated that for our municipality is based on what we expect to lose from last year's revenues. So basically you're getting kind of a this for that, it maybe covers what we lost. If that's the case, obviously, everything we do is very scrutinized and budgeted. Like every little thing that we account for, you need to come up with exchanges and modifications in your budget. If we go the other route and you have to follow it explicitly, we'll be talking to our partners. I saw an email this afternoon that I'd seen last week about the senior lunch funding. Stuff like that would potentially be fundable, but it would have to be like a grant, or we'd have to have like a format and have it qualify, assuming that we can use those funds in that fashion. If that's the case, we would likely go to our partners like Providence, the health clinic, Sea Life Center, because I don't think we have enough utilization and justification to claim the money we're supposed to be allocated. It would be severely deficient. So maybe we could claim half of it. So that would open that up for other purposes. And outside of that, I don't know, you'd have to talk to our lobbyist or our state legislators, because that's still in a nebulous, unknown state. It's not, here's the check that's coming, because we don't know that for certain. So these are still acts that are in process. I mean, that the attorneys group, and that's something even with AML, it's like on a weekly basis, it changes how and what and maybe what it looks like. So I couldn't answer that properly without referring you to some of those. AML is a good source. We have weekly meetings on the updates on that.
So I did read the whole AML slides on all the
Sure.
possible funding situations that could have happened. One, I was concerned with the senior center. We did get an email back from Dana saying that they are looking at a $48,000 shortfall. As of this point right now, going into June, they will most likely be suspending the weekend food delivery, which is a little alarming, you know, that I noticed if there's one thing that kind of keeps coming back, it's protecting your most vulnerable population. I've also seen examples of other municipalities already looking at spending their funding, like Juneau, on childcare, and knowing already that that's a problem that has been caused. You know, all of their childcare got shut down. Now it's at lower capacity, and they need to figure out, well, these people need to be subsidized because they cannot perform this service at full capacity and still be able to operate within the margins that they're needed. So I think we feel the same way about looking at the senior center and the funding that they're going to need. It would be sad to see a gap in the services that they're currently providing, being as it's pretty, I feel it's very essential.
Sure.
Also, they've been providing lunches to people who are quarantined and cannot go to get food for themselves or have any other means of getting food. So they're providing this service that I think is very essential.
So can I suggest something, Councilmember Baclan, if I'm not interrupting you? So, I agree, and, you know, the senior center received $8,000 from us. And so, you know, the clerk's gonna give me a look, because I should have asked her, but I asked the finance department. $5,100 available in council's budget, and $1,000 in our contingency. I need to work with the clerk to see how much of that is already allocated, or she has a mask on, so I can't see her face. But for me, I personally would like to see some of the council travel money go towards that shortfall. And that's just one item that I've just identified. So I don't know if we can work with the city manager.
Yeah, I mean, we saved that money by not going to DC.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. We have that money already. I think that would be an appropriate.
So the issue I had was,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor McClure sent out their request, which was for $8,000.
Yeah,
We researched it and have $6,250 in there.
yeah.
But, and I don't disagree with Councilmember Baclan saying, if we do get these avenues and these things do open up and we are permitted to go outside because we can't capture it as lost revenue, by all means, I think, you know, funding different mechanisms and areas of our community makes total sense, including our partners. If we don't get that allowance, obligating something like $48,000 as an unfunded mandate is that much of an additional impact on our budget, where does that money come from and how do we cover those expenses, in addition to the lost $5 million that operates the city day to day?
But do you assume that they would take away all the funding? I mean,
I don't know.
$38,000 from $4.4 million, which is what's over the cap.
But
I
if
mean-
they don't allow it, any penny of it is not funded. It's an additional mandate that this council did not approve budgeting. So you have to come up with it
But it's
like
supposed
we
to be
did.
for funds that were not budgeted anyway.
We don't know that at this point, which way this is going to go.
Most of the advice has been on that they were for funding for that was not
But it's
per
not,
pre-budgeted
it's not solid
items.
yet. It's unknown. I mean, we read that every week. Still, the U.S. Senate does not know which direction this is going.
So,
And the attorney, yeah.
Attorney Wells, did you have any additional input? Do you have any insight to this?
Well, one thing I would say is that a lot of communities are working on grant programs so that they're ready to pull the trigger if and when that time comes, and that allows you to really suss out criteria, determine what you would do. It's hard because it requires work sessions by council and that input and dedication of resources on the front end, but I do think, I've been sort of watching other communities that are larger that are doing that. Matsuboro, I believe, is doing that, and so that might be, exactly, so it might be a good way for the administration to be ready and for council to help identify potential recipients, and I think there's some guidance on that if that's a direction council would want to go.
maybe we can revisit that in the budget committee.
So, I think so, and I just have a question to you, Councilmember Bookwan. I wonder, as we talk about this, I wonder if we want to get the Seward Community Foundation involved. I wonder if they would help us vet some of those requests, but just something to think about. Okay, so we'll talk about it later in the agenda. Did you have something else to add?
No, I think in preparation, we want to be the direction these things go, because we are going to have to step up and assist and delegate that out. On the other side of that coin is, if it is replacement funding, you're talking about replenishing all of our budget that's missing. Just like a lot of other entities out there saying, okay, all the stuff we do, all of a sudden the money's not there to pay for it. And then this would be, covering the purchases we just did tonight and staff. Otherwise, we do have serious budget issues coming. And that's not unusual for just us. It's a current issue.
I understand that there's, budget cuts and things, or budget issues and shortfalls that might occur, but, we need to, I think, look at some of the relief as well, not 100 to our tax
And I don't think
shortfall.
that's intention, assuming we can do that. We may not be able to do that whatsoever. So that's really, we're preparing to do that. We don't know at this point.
So when I researched online, it said that the direct cost distribution for number one was $1.47 million, and that initial payment plus the cap would have came from a payment in May.
So to my knowledge, they have not distributed any money to us yet.
Okay. And then,
But
so
it's-
there was
but it's
three,
still, there's three payments, about
Yeah.
$1.3 million is what we were told. Just last week, the legislature, still in session, was debating, is this going to be pass-through money? Are we going to encumber it and use it for other purposes? So we don't even know if we're going to get any of that money, is the reality.
I'm just a little concerned because listening to what other municipalities have done, and you have seen the examples of the North Slope Borough, say that their budget shortfalls are huge, and that they're raising taxes in those communities to make up for those shortfalls. And if not raising taxes, they were going to the governor and complaining that the money that they were going to receive was not enough. And after they had done that, those two communities had seen a $1 million increase in what they were receiving from the CARES funding or the distribution. So if we're saying that we're looking at a shortfall and how much that's possibly going to be, then maybe we need to look a little closer and see how much we're missing. And if we need to be lobbying our legislators and our governor for money, then we need to be doing that. So
those were errors in AML's calculation on the sheet. That's not ambiguous to the rest of us that they just did the calculation. And that revenue figure that they have is roughly a 30% estimate on what was supplied last year. So that came about the numbers.
there were
Some
a
of those-
30% loss for their,
That's their estimate. They have all of our tax and numbers from last year. They did that system-wide across, there were municipalities and entities that did not have information, which was the initial problem. I don't know why that is. I wasn't part of that, but, so that's roughly, we're saying, yeah, the way they came up with that number is that's our estimated loss. So, if they do replenish that, I think we have a huge service and obligation to step up and assist with that when they determine that we could do that. So in preparation, we want to make sure that we're doing that. But until we know definitively, I don't think right now anybody knows that. I know that we haven't gotten a distribution, so it's not to say that we aren't getting something shortly. But I know that, the figures they put out there are just numbers. We have not actually seen any of that. And the Sea Life Center is not here. I've had their budget committee. They got PPP money. So those are similarly, their rebates, their loans, their grants. Do you have to pay it back? Do you not? There's different criteria, and accounting firms are having a hard time deciphering what's usable.
well, it's interesting.
To ask me, I don't have an answer
Yeah,
for
well,
you.
looking at the distribution on what AML recommended was, usable funds within the guidelines that are now being provided, looking and thinking about the Sea Life Center, I don't think that would be a venue that they would be looking at. They were looking at people, and And one thing that was interesting too was direct, stimulus payments into people, to citizens, the ratepayers of the city. Another one was direct credits to people who were in vulnerable population and to their utility bills. So I think there's a lot of solutions that they were providing, but like I said, maybe we'll revisit
But
that.
those
at the budget
solutions
committee.
create tax problems for us to get our funds.
I'm sorry?
Though, doing those creative solutions, how do we backfill ours? Do we increase our mill? Do we do it? These are lost revenues in our budget.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So are there any other questions with the city manager's report? I want to open another can of worms. I'm just going to utilize this and hopefully the city manager believes that it falls under his report also, is I think as a council we should talk about how we're meeting. And now that there's less restrictions at the state level, I'll just throw it out there. I would like to start meeting at the very least in the library community room to have the ability to have public attend. But I think it's not on the agenda tonight. It would just be a discussion item and it would come back to our next council meeting. And I believe it would be something that the clerk would bring back, just kind of hearing what we have to say. So I don't know what the council's rest of their feelings are. Are we, Councilmember Buckland?
Could the city manager change that process as our emergency?
I believe
Person.
that because we're under the emergency, that is the process. I would do that with your guidance. I wouldn't want to just make a call and put people in uncomfortable situations. Even though this is kind of about the maximum of occupancy we should have in here. My recommendation is I really feel like stage 5 will be coming. I think we do have to prepare for presentations, work sessions. We have several from March that we have not had done yet, had completed. I really feel like what happens if things do work and we stay in this type of stuff, and again, we put the work in and the consultants and the people presenting, and then they can't be in here. I think we already have a list of those that need to still come from the missed opportunity. So I don't know. I mean, I was looking at what's a reasonable time frame with this. Like, it's June essentially. Do we look at starting this in July or August, or do we wait? Do we just open it because it's allowable? Those are really hard things to make the call on. But I look to your direction of how you want to do it. I would recommend that we kind of, like you said, put it out there and have some time to implement it, get it out to people. Lots of presentations coming on. The next meeting, we have something about the Jesse Lee home. So there will be, an outside consultant engineer as a presentation.
Councilmember Buckland?
Do you think we could come together as a council right now and just say that we would like to see that for the next meeting?
See what?
I think
open
putting it on
meeting.
for public comment would be appropriate on the agenda, because it's not on the agenda. I don't know that we should take action on non-agenda items.
And one thing I can weigh in here, if this is helpful, earlier today you had a special meeting on your COVID recovery plan. One of the appendices is recommended amendments to the emergency rules, and one of those is changing the should hold electronic meetings to may. And that would give, and I think council expressed their support for that coming back to them, and those rules anyways, that amendment, that appendix. So I think council has had a discussion that suggests that an emergency, a change to the emergency rules is warranted, and the manager can take that direction and give you that flexibility so council can move forward.
And that is
Open
scheduled for the
meetings.
next
Is
meeting.
that- If that's helpful.
The next meeting will bring us all the way into July. I feel like the public is concerned that we're moving, we have restaurants open, we have bars open, things are opening up. Just like concerns with the library, there's concerns that are we really having open meetings at this point? Is the public allowed, not allowed, what's the process, and why we can't move to even, to do a meeting that's at the Ray Building or somewhere else where we can have more space to do a meeting. But like you said, you could do that as our emergency manager, but if you wouldn't like council guidance and wait till the next meeting to hear that, then
Well, and I don't want to take action that puts people's safety, and there are still people that are very concerned about all this, and if the council wants to say we'll have a regular meeting, I'll implement that.
Well, and the mayor has,
And just on the, talking about all the special meetings and stuff we had, last time our meeting went too late, we couldn't go on to the executive sessions. Are those planned for
No, those executive sessions were tabled, they did not approve doing them
when?
at the last
We didn't
meeting.
get a second to hold those executive sessions.
Well, not that night.
Yeah.
I took it that, not that night.
No, we'd have to
Okay.
put those back on.
Okay.
Attorney Walls?
I apologize. I just want to be clear that under Rule 1, the mayor can, I think the specific language is, the mayor may determine that the meeting must be conducted at City Hall and that doing so does not pose a risk to public health, safety, and welfare. I don't know that that's a trigger you want to use to move forward. It sounds like you're ready and sort of giving direction to revisit that rule and open up as quickly as reasonable, so I don't, but that rule is there
Yeah,
if you need it.
the problem with that rule is it must be conducted at City Hall. So my concern is this room doesn't allow for enough social distancing.
Okay.
So the way that it's written, I think would put people at risk where potentially there's somewhere else that we could have social distancing. What I'd like to see is a hybrid, like people that don't want, that would like to provide, I think we have adequate public comment now. I think that people can write in, they can be called. I think that the avenues are there, but I also know that people would like to be here in person. So I would like to start us thinking about a hybrid option, whether if it's people staging in the hallway. I think having it at the community room at the library would allow for more social distancing. I know the clerks looked at the Ray Building. So if there's something to approve at the next meeting, at a second meeting in June, we could have an option. That still puts us a month out, unless council would like to have a special meeting to discuss. Councilmember Osinga?
The only question I had on that is if you have it some other place, will it have the same public
Capability.
transmittal as we have here as far as radio and TV and
Radio, probably, but GCI, no.
see?
For
Yeah.
YouTube?
YouTube, yeah.
Well, yeah. So you're
that
gaining,
would-
you're
that
gaining
would
one way
limit-
and losing another.
So we're practicing recommendations at this point. These aren't mandates that we have to have masks and sit this far apart. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be devil's
You're
advocate.
right,
but-
like, we don't have to follow social distancing,
Right.
but I think it's proven at some point.
And we do, one more point, we need to make sure that if we do it by emergency rule, or if we don't, we pay attention to the references to City Hall and council chambers
Yeah,
in the
That's
rules and
my concern.
procedures.
Yes,
So,
that's my
it'll be easier to do the emergency rule than the rules and procedures for council.
To Councilman Attorney Wells, so something would have to change with these rules. We couldn't have a separate item at our next meeting, separate from these rules. We would have to amend these rules themselves.
I would recommend that the city manager has heard your direction, concerns, and where you guys want to. I would hope that, you would see a new rule that reflects that, and that would be, not only would it be cleaner, but it would be effective quicker. So it would get into place right away. So we just amend, so what you would see is an emergency order number 4, amending Rule 1 to speed up the process for open meetings and permitting them to take place outside chambers, which currently that's what the rules and procedures say, but this is a state of emergency, and so having them at the library would certainly be justified. Not the library, but the,
I mean, technically, telephonically is outside.
Well,
Right.
but that's in the rules.
right, that's
That's
how
what we
we,
do.
exactly, that's exactly it. So we use these rules because we have a declared state of emergency.
But we can change it to say May. We
Absolutely.
talked about that, so
and-
you could elect to not do it this way.
And we can make sure that you have a choice of venue that lets the councils have flexible meeting place choices.
Okay, and I am just one opinion, so I would like to hear from other council members. I guess my feeling is the more options we have for people to participate, but then I also hear a council member saying that it would take away an option. So I don't know if there's any input from the entire council.
I just don't want to move too fast, I guess is what I'm going to get at. I want to be cautious in what we're going to do here in the future. That's all.
Councilmember Cease?
Well, I've had a lot of comments that people like having it on television. They're not YouTube savvy, and if you listen to the radio, I personally like to see and not just listen. So if we're going to take the television, we can't get GCI to participate. It's not feasible for once or twice. But
Councilmember Osinga, I'm sorry, Councilmember Buckline, I'm first going to go to Councilmember Kreitz. Did you have any comments?
I think I'm on board with what Councilmember Osinga said as far as going a little more. If you're still under a state of emergency, at least following the recommendations that the state is saying with social distancing. And I think if we are in this room, are we saying public can come in at 25% capacity? Is that currently what we're doing? I'm just wondering if...
We're saying no public.
It could be up to 50%, but
50%.
based on the capacity, we can have no more than 6 members of the
and that was at
public.
50% capacity. So I'm not sure how many more people that will give you at the library meeting room. Maybe
Actually, it's
2 or 3.
100% now,
Yeah.
as of last Friday, and it still doesn't change the capacity we have.
Councilmember Buckline?
I'm disappointed that everybody is okay to have all the administration, but still wouldn't want to have an open meeting. Thank you.
That's not accurate. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm out.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Well, I'm more on the move slowly side too. We're, just because the bars and the restaurants are open, you don't have to go to them, but you may feel you need to come to a meeting, but if then we pack people in just because we can get them in here and jeopardize health, I'd like to, see social distancing and masks if we're going to have, but I'm noticing maybe that the GCI is not on tonight.
It's on the monitor.
Oh, okay, okay, because that is one of the prime ways people watch these meetings is through GCI. But also, if we were to move to the library community room, maybe it would only be a couple meetings and then things would lighten up and we could feel more comfortable being back here too, I guess.
To the clerk, would there be a way that we could allow public testimony and have people wait in their cars and be called in and speak at the podium, just like we did with the staff tonight, like they were here and then left? Could
We offered that for tonight's meeting.
Oh, okay, so
For
that,
both of tonight's meetings, we offered the options of email, written comments, telephonic comments, or in-person comments.
okay, so
Wow.
can we highlight that? I mean, I guess I did read that, but maybe the public doesn't understand what that means.
Sure.
Does that help at all, Councilmember Buckland?
Sure.
And so, okay, so I see that that's the new number 3.
Oh, I can do a better job.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either.
So let's just make sure, but I would like to see, I just think in 2 weeks it could be, we could even be more open. So I would like to see it at the very least at the next council member, which I'm just one person, but potentially if we could look at something to discuss at the next council meeting.
Like a number system or something that people coming in to speak, and it'd be nice if we could have a TV in the hall or an overflow area, but then people might huddle together to watch the.
Yeah. Well, I think
Ideally.
that's in place. I would just like to see a larger venue and have more people being allowed to be here. But I don't know that that's the will of everyone on council, so that's fine. Okay, well, I took up enough time with that. Thank you, everyone, for discussing that. Next on the agenda is the city attorney's report. Sorry, Holly.
No, that's okay. I will rest on my written report unless anyone has any questions or particulars they'd like me to discuss.
Are there any questions for Attorney Wells? Okay. Next on the agenda is other reports and announcement, the Chamber of Commerce report, and that's found on page 13.
And I'll call the director.
Okay,
He
thank
wants to give some comments. Okay, maybe I don't need to use the area code.
Hello, Jason.
Hi, Jason. You
Good evening. I decided I wanted to still call in just so I can watch the whole meeting and kind of pay attention to what's going on. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I just wanted to go over a few highlights from my report. One is that tomorrow Tim Dillon will be doing a Zoom call. He'll actually be here in Seward doing a Zoom call at 11:30 on the state CARES money, which opened up today. And so then afterwards, those people who are interested, we'll be doing a Q&A in person. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out and I can get you that information. But I'm hopeful about this money more so than the federal money, just because I don't believe they'll have the same distribution issues that we did at the federal level, which is good for our small businesses. So obviously the weekends are pretty busy. This last weekend we had about 20 people a day in the visitor center. The phone calls are lots and lots of phone calls, of which are lower 48 that want things look like because they have trips planned in June, July, and August, and so which is, yeah, it's just interesting to be able to gauge kind of consumer confidence in that people are ready to come and visit. But the question of the hour is the 2-week quarantine mandate that's still in place and when that's going to go away, which no one knows for sure. I think people believe it's going to be the 2nd, so that remains to be seen. But yeah, the visitor center, we're going to be using the Derby booth as a secondary visitor center when it's not during use in Derby time, so you guys can look out. We have a new kind of photographic cutout that you stand behind that would be placed down in the harbor. It's coming in tomorrow, and we'll try and get that in place in the next week or so. We're using the Derby booth down there now. We do have information posted in the window, and we'll be staffing that a little bit here and there. I'm busy just to see how that will work. So that way we can refer businesses and give people directions from down there, which actually sees probably more traffic than the visitor center. And just also too on my report, the last pages, if you're a math nerd like myself, you can see that our websites and social media, we're getting way more views now that things are opening up, and way more time on pages, which means that people are really starting to look and read and learn, and are doing research and that kind of thing. And so that's also just kind of encouraging. So And just a quick update on kind of a couple of events. I'm working with Elle kind of on the Halibut Derby. We're kind of still trying to figure out if we can make a small one, which is probably going to happen June 15th to the 30th. Smaller, really low-key type of derby event. Now that things are kind of opened up and people are running charters. So yeah, just to help out the charter industry get some business. We had our first 4th of July committee meeting last week, and so we're stepping into that, which is good, and kind of doing a modified 4th of July, which I see some great opportunity in. Councilmember Butts is on that, which I appreciate his involvement there. The Mountain Marathon committee met last Friday, and so they're working through the process to have a decision going forward on June 1. There was a runner survey put out last weekend, and then Matthias and some of the committee members are doing kind of, obviously, like, safety is our main concern here, both runner safety and spectator safety, and looking at adaptations to some things and feasibilities. You know, making sure that we can, you know, do a race at that date safely, and then also do the and the date that they are kind of tentatively looking at is the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. The Seward Silver Salmon Derby is moving forward full steam ahead. We have lots of calls about that. People say, "Hey, I've got my trip booked. Is this still going on?" And so we think that's going to be a great way to, you know, just one of the pieces to finish the summer well. So, you guys have any questions for me?
I just have a quick question. I know you've been doing those Zoom meetings with all the different industries. How much longer will you continue those? Will those keep going through the summer?
Those are starting to slow down, like attendance is starting to come down a little bit. So we're going to be probably combining them. Attendance was really high for a while, and some was attended a bit more than others, but we're probably going to be combining them kind of back down on call, or how can we be helping you out, barriers to business. But I think that's a good sign that those calls were helpful and that we're able to put some things together, and there was a lot of relationships formed and some partnerships formed. And, you know, business stepped up, and we kind of were able to get kind of a co-op and Cliff on there, you know, did kind of the PPE co-op. And so we productive, but I think it's also really, the last Marine call we did, it was like, you, me, and Aaron Finney from Shoreside, so, because it was, everyone's working in the marine industry is really cranking right now, and so I think that's a good sign that those calls are going back, the attendance is going back down, so.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions, Chamber Director? Thank you, Jason. Thanks for getting online and speaking to us via phone today.
Yep, thanks for all you guys are doing, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. Good night.
Next agenda is the Seward Community Health Center report.
And I will call Craig Ambrosiani. Oh, I will not. Surprise.
Great. Mr. Ambrosiani, thank you for coming. Go ahead, you have the floor,
Right
sir.
here? Oh, thank you. Craig Ambrosiani, Executive Director of Seward Community Health Center. And I'm doing under our cost-of-pay agreement with the city, we're required to do a quarterly report. Unfortunately, in February, we were not able to do that report in February. So the one that I sent out to you guys has 2019 report information and then first quarter of 2020 information. And this was information to the end of March, and we were just starting to feel the effects of COVID in March. So financially, at this point, the issues with 2019, we ended up the year pretty well. We had a profit of approximately $115,000 for 2019. 2018, we had a profit of $93,000, so we're showing some consistency there. But the first quarter of 2020, we actually showed a loss of $91,000 before we got federal assistance. With the federal assistance, we were able to utilize that funding to offset some of our costs and took the loss down to $1,700. April is, we're just reporting that to our board this week, but we were about 40% of our patient volume, 40% of our normal patient volume in April of this year. As of this week, we just started today going back to 100% staffing and are starting to pick up volumes again. On my report, on the second page, under updates.
So that's page 20 of the packet.
That first bullet point, I apologize, was a carryover from my previous report and I missed it. So if it seemed out of whack, it was. But we did do the Integrated Behavioral Health Program with the Suicide Prevention Coalition. And that program is moving along nicely so far. They have hired a director for that. And they're starting to reach out to the community for behavioral health assessments. We did in 2019, or for 2019, we did have a financial audit with brand new auditors. They dug a lot deeper than previous auditors. And we did have one finding. The finding was, had to do with our procurement policy. In 2019, the federal government changed the guidance on procurement, and we did not reference the right document in our procurement policy. We did 2 contracts in 2019. Both contracts were 100% correct under new guidance. It's just our policy wasn't updated to reflect the material under new guidance. So we had to redo the policy. We had our board approve it. We submitted it. It's gone to the federal clearinghouse. So it's all good, but that's what we got on this year's audit. Other thing, just 2 more updates. We are moving forward with our building project. We have decided to use the lot just north of the hospital that the Community Health Center 501c3 owns. We've decided the next milestone that we're looking for right now is to raise approximately $1.2 million to get our plan shovel ready. So we did have to make several changes to our plans to accommodate COVID. And those plans include separate entrances for healthy and not so healthy. If somebody's sick, they're going to have a separate entrance than somebody that's coming in for a wellness visit. So we'll be able to separate them, and we'll also be able to separate the waiting areas and the airflow. So part of the new clinic would have negative air pressure, so that people on that side of the clinic, the air would be exhausting straight out. It wouldn't be recirculating. And of course, we would have drive-through capabilities for drive-through testing. The current things we're doing now. And they'd be covered, so we wouldn't have to do it during it. Or some people wouldn't have to do it during it. The last thing was just a thank you. Thanks to our community, thanks to the people in this room, administration department, fire department. It was really amazing to see everyone working together. First office being getting the point of information. The community came together, and even the fisheries, the canneries, I'm sure leaving a lot of people out. But I mean, we did the best we could with what we had. I think we really did well, and hopefully we don't have to use all the strength we pulled to keep fighting this thing. But if we do, I feel
other questions? Yes?
Okay, so that'll be on the Westland property that you're gonna build?
Are there any questions for Mr. President? I have one question first. So April's, you're seeing 40% of.
In April, yeah, we were like 250.
So are there additional funding opportunities that you can continue to look for? Or do you feel like that was a one and done with the COVID grant funding?
We received 3 COVID grants from the federal government. And, well, more than that. 3 from HRSA, and then the Health and Human Services, we've gotten 3 smaller grants. But still, it's been significant enough that it should, unless we have a huge resurgence, it should carry us through the year.
Okay.
We did also apply for an FCC grant, and if we get it, we'll be bringing it back to notify you, to enhance our telemedicine and technology services. We did find that by having everybody from home, have most of our staff work, and also telemedicine, our network can handle it. So we're still having lots of issues with it.
I did want to add that they supplied us with the long-term lease that we've turned over to the attorneys, and we're just kind of looking at that to bring back. We've worked on the resolution background. Right now, I believe it's just a month-to-month,
Right.
and it was like a HRSA issue, so they did supply it to us. We're reviewing that, getting it prepared to come back. It's a no-cost lease, really, but it's still a legal document, so we'll take a look at that.
Great.
But I do want you to know it's coming.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming down today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Next on the agenda is a presentation by Providence Seward. Welcome. Cole White.
I'll just jump up really quickly here and run over some financial statements with you guys real quick, and then turn the balance of the time over to our Administrator Robert Ring. But we've submitted to the city our audited financial statements for 2019 from the auditing firm KPMG. And we did have a couple audit findings on there, most of it revolving around reconciliation and roll forward of fixed assets, which we have been working diligently to develop a plan to address those audit findings so that we don't have them repeating again here in 2020. But 2019 was a little bit better year than 2018. Our volumes were slightly down, but our financial picture was actually a little bit better, due mostly to cost containment, our payer mixes, and our ability to collect on the revenues that we've charged for. So our net position actually improved from 2018 to 2019 and continues to improve into 2020, even though we've seen, again, a downtick in volume. And that's mostly due to administration's efforts on cost containment. You'll see from 18 to 19, we had about a 2% uptick in costs, which actually is better than inflation, but our total revenues upticked around 13%. So again, those are some good trends that we're seeing right now. Through the first 4 months into 2019 now, or 2020 right now, we thought we were going to be seeing some pretty grim times here as we've progressed into our busiest season, which is the summer. But due to, of course, some CARES Act funding, which you see in my slides that I've shared, we received a pretty decent amount of money. Much like your city managers, some trepidation there. What are those monies for? How can we use them? We really don't know as of yet. They've given us some pretty decent, cash reserves right now. But we're holding on to those, waiting for some further instruction from the federal government, because the last thing we want to do is spend on monies that we don't really have rightfully access to. So Robert's strategy is to hold on and safeguard those, because we know that the impact's going to be coming throughout this year, as we're going to see some downturn likely in tourism volumes, which really surge on the hospital side through the summer months. So we did see a loss through the first 3 months of the year, but then with the CARES Act funding in April, that has brought us up to actually a net profit through the 4 months ending April 30th of this year. So what looked like was going to be a pretty grim year is now maybe potentially, from a financial standpoint, looking much better than we thought it was going to be about a month ago. And then I present, you guys have the audited financials in your hands, and we thank you for the extra week or two that you guys gave us to get those wrapped up. Do you have any questions on the financial picture?
No, it might be an operation and a financial, but, you know, for so long, council's been told 32 beds, or, you know, sometimes that number changes up at the long-term care facility. And I don't know if it's still that important of a number with the, you know, how the bond ratios go down and depreciation, but where are we at with the long-term care facility being,
Yeah, we've been averaging, we've been working real hard to get our numbers up. You know, unfortunately, both, you know, for our residents in the hospital, you know, as we bring in, we lose a couple. And so that number has just been holding real flat at about 30 is what our census has been. But we're expending every effort right now to get those numbers up. And our goal, we would love to be, you know, at 32, 34, 36, yeah.
are there any other questions? Thank you.
So to kind of segue off of some of the stuff that Cole presented, speaking of our long-term care, we did celebrate our 10th anniversary back in October, when the buildings were built, which was a nice milestone. And, also in November, U.S. News and World Report released their best nursing home report, and Seward made that list. So nationally, we were in the top ranking for 2019 and 2020, which is a good feather in our cap, given some of the opportunities we've had in the past couple of years. Some of the other changes for long-term care over the past several years, we have physicians from Anchorage that were coming down providing resident care services. I made changes that we now have local providers providing long-term care residents. Dr. Flynn is our medical director now, so that allows for a little bit more timely response and just, you know, a little bit better dialogue. Dr. Flynn attends a lot of our interdisciplinary team meetings, is very involved in our quality measures, and it helps significantly having somebody local.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It's kind of funny, it was a year ago when I started this job, one of the conversations that you guys had was regarding the change from our greenhouse model. For most part, well, what we have recognized that there's some opportunities to think outside the box with that. So for the most, again, residents themselves have not seen a whole lot of care issues, but our process has been able to change. For the past several years, we have been using CNAs to do the cooking, and as a result, we've had some challenges hiring CNAs, and we've been averaging about 9 to 10 travelers that do not put much into our community by living here. And so we're going to make some changes and actually decrease the number of CNAs we have and actually hire cooks. You know, because of our ABTAC culinary program, given the situation we have, and I think we can most likely be able to find people who are interested in doing that job. Not interested in doing patient care, but we're definitely looking to cook.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Cold crunch the numbers, we're going to get about $700,000 a year. On the hospital side, as I reported to you guys last time I was here, we were looking at a specialty clinic. We're getting ready to roll that out. Again, for the infusions, we got a lot of folks in our community that are going up to Anchorage or Soldotna for some services for, we will not be able to do chemotherapy, but some of the supporting infusions, some of the antibiotics, and those things that people are going up down up to Anchorage for. We'll be able to start doing locally here in the next month. Cole talked about our finances a little bit. If you guys recall, back in December of 18, so about a year and a half ago, the liability to Providence was $8.3 million, if you recall. When I reported to you guys in October, we had got that down to 6.1. I'm happy to report that at the end of April, we dropped that down to $4.6 million. So we almost half of what it was a year and a half ago. And if this money, CARES money, we can figure out what we can do with that, that will definitely be a good chunk of change when we put that toward as well. So as Cole reported, we got about $3.5 million from CARE after we are pigeonholed and holding on to it until we figure out what the nuance is with that CARE money. But even with that said, we've had a good enough finance return that we still think we can bring our expenses down. About a year and a half ago, we got a new CT scanner. Unfortunately, the past month, the X-ray table and the portable units have outlived their useful life. The vendors are no longer supporting it, and so we're going to have to replace those. We were kind of hoping to do that piecemeal, do one now and maybe one later. Unfortunately, we've had some breakdowns in which we're going to eliminate we can find parts for, so we're going to have to fast track that for a bit. We'll be doing that in the next month. And the other thing is, obviously, we've been very busy with COVID, as you guys recognize. We divided our processes up into two categories. One focusing on long-term care, because of those folks are very vulnerable. There's a lot of rules and regulations, and every time you turn around, there was new mandates coming down, because it makes sure we protect those folks. And then we had the hospital side, which also included our alternative care side. And it's worked out very well by dividing my team that way. I want to thank members of this group, city manager, city clerk, the clinic, working with us very closely, because having that cooperation really made those projects run smooth. Any questions for me?
I missed it. So was the x-ray table and what was the other piece of equipment?
The portable
that's-
unit.
Portable unit?
Yeah. Yeah, now that they outlived their useful lives, but even the vendors cannot even give us parts for them anymore.
You know, for a lot of years, we have Providence come and say, last year was a bad year, we're still doing bad, but we think it's gonna do better. So this was nice to have a, you know, last year was a good year, we think things are looking up. You know, I think that it's nice to hear some positive news, and getting that obligation down by half is pretty incredible.
Yeah, pretty
So
proud.
thank you for your leadership on that. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Happy anniversary, Robert.
Yeah.
And you
Thank
did a
you.
nice job.
Great, next on the agenda is public hearings. There are none. Unfinished business items proposed postponed from a previous agenda. Discuss rescheduling the interviews with the city attorney firm candidates. There were two, we had worked it down to 2 candidates. We had an interview scheduled with them right at the start of COVID. We were unable to obtain a quorum, so I think now, I believe the clerk has spoken to both of them, and they're willing to come down here in person, which I know some of the council members wanted to make sure that they were here in person. And I'm not sure who put this on the agenda. I think it just came up routine, or did Councilmember
me.
Baclan? Did you want to speak to it?
No, we just kept pushing it back because of other things that were more important at that time, so I guess we can talk about scheduling those.
Let's pull out the schedule, and I know the city clerk spoke to them. How much notice would they need? What would you suggest?
A variety of dates would be more helpful if we could maybe focus on a week or in a period of over 2 weeks. And try and organize something.
I mean, I think we should try to hold it pretty quickly in June. I'm gone the 2nd and the 3rd for training. So I don't know if the week of the 8th of June, what people's schedules look like. I think last time we set it up as a midday, the first one at 10 and the second one at noon, or the first one at 10 and the second one at 1?
I think it was 11 and 1
11
with
and
a
1.
break.
So,
Monday and Thursdays, I usually have PT, but
Okay.
the other ones would be fine. And make sure that when we're on that date.
I mean, we could do Thursday, June 4th, if that, to have it be sooner, or Tuesday, June 9th. What
I'm
do-
open the 4th if everybody else
Would be
is.
better.
The 4th is better. Councilmember Osinga, I know you have lots of commitments during the day.
What time are you talking about? 11 and 1 again? Oh, okay. Might swing one of those, but that wouldn't be very good. I don't know that I'd be able to do both of them.
So the last time what we did was we recorded, so as long as we had a quorum here during the
That was what we
interviews,
decided.
then we could, since it's being recorded on YouTube already, then
Here's the schedule for
council
last
that missed it could watch it after.
Somehow it was in our packet.
How would we set up the public involvement?
In the same fashion as the current meeting. I would imagine, unless we're gonna change it.
So Thursday, June 4th? And then the next week, Tuesday, June 9th, or Thursday, June 11th? That's 3 days, or no, some of those days don't work for you? Councilmember Kreitz?
Yeah, I wouldn't be available that week, but
Oh, you would not be available that whole week? Okay, let's look at the week of June 15th.
I'm gone on the 18th, oddly. I take my mom to Anchorage. The one day
Okay.
in my year.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry,
no.
Mary Terry. What are we looking at now?
So we're looking at days to provide options to the attorney candidates.
Oh, different date?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
gotcha,
just,
gotcha.
just kind of a.
Thank you.
So I think we talked about the 4th would be good, but if that doesn't work for some of those firms,
16th.
the week of the, okay, we could say the 16th, see if the 4th or the 16th. That's 2 dates out there.
Is there a problem with Mondays?
No,
So
15th
the
or
15th?
16th?
Yeah,
16th is fine.
16th is fine with you.
Yeah, Mondays are just hard for me at work. We're really busy
Busy.
on Mondays.
Oh, okay, or Wednesday, well, yeah, you can't do Wednesday.
There was nothing the week of the 8th?
Julie's gone.
Oh.
Well, maybe 2 options are enough.
So try with the 4th and 16th?
Yeah. And then to the clerk, if neither one of those dates work, can you poll the council separately and we would respond separately to you with some
Sure you can.
suggestions?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That sounds good.
Is there any comments or questions regarding that?
Can I just also ask another question? During that, in the packet for that special meeting, not in the packet, no, we didn't publicize the interview questions. Can I assume they'll remain the same as council had decided
Oh,
on previously?
right.
Yeah, I think so.
No need to change those?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
And so
So
the
long.
question might be, you might resend that. I still have what I
Yeah.
printed out. but
Please
probably
resend
wouldn't
it, I
hurt to
didn't,
resend
I didn't
it.
Yes,
print mine.
please.
And so, prior to that, so you have published it to the public once, or at least once, with all the attorney's background information, what they submitted.
Yeah.
Can we go ahead and make sure that that gets brought up to the top of the,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
same packet.
yes, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is new business, or to resolutions. And resolution 20-041, Madam Clerk, if you want to read that title into the record.
Resolution 20-041 is recommending the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly enact ordinance 2020-24, which would provide for vote-by-mail elections for more time between a regular election and a runoff election, and to remove propositions.
Okay, is there a motion and a second?
I move for the approval of Resolution 20-041.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, you brought this to us. Did you want to give an outline of, present it to council?
Sure. So, some time ago, the borough had formulated the election stakeholders group, and you might recall that they met for a period of about 6 or 8 months.
6 months, I think, twice a month. So
And,
there were 12 meetings.
and brought back a short list of recommendations. There were 6 items that were identified, and previously council has reviewed those recommendations and passed a resolution to support that the borough pursue those recommendations. Late last year in the fall, the borough hired a consultant, the same consultant that worked to assist the municipality of Anchorage in developing their vote-by-mail system. They hired that vendor to do a feasibility study to see whether it would be feasible for the borough to move to a vote-by-mail scenario, and they came back with sort of a positive report, although the specific details haven't all been ironed out yet. The borough is moving forward with an ordinance to take that recommendation and move to by-mail elections. The original plan was to enact that in 2021. And when COVID came, there was consideration for a period of time to try and move that forward to this year. But just last week, the borough decided that 2021 would be a better enactment time. Most every city on the peninsula has passed a resolution of support for the borough to continue with their work to move forward with vote by mail. And so this resolution before you is modeled after the other cities, and it's up to the body to decide whether they want to support the borough moving forward with that.
Vice Mayor?
Well, having been on that committee and pretty well versed in this, I would recommend that we pass this resolution of support. I know there's some reluctance on the part of a number of the Borough Assembly members to approve this, and I think it would be incumbent on us to offer our support just because it's actually not completely, when they get through with all of this recommendations, it's not completely vote by mail, it's like a hybrid. So there are options for coming in and voting and all sorts of other options besides the vote by mail. Anyway, I'd speak in favor of this.
I have a question for the clerk. One thing I don't see addressed in cost, and I did ask you a question earlier, and was it my understanding that this could potentially cost more initially?
Yeah, my understanding as well is that the initial outlay for cost for the borough would be in the $500,000 range, $400,000 to $500,000, and then that would be to get equipment and supplies that they need, and then it would drop considerably in the years following that. It is really unclear what the potential cost to the city is, and this doesn't preclude the city of Seward from taking a different direction. This is just for the borough's portion. So I don't really have costs for you.
Vice Mayor McClure?
That was part of the issue too. And part of the problem here is, as I recall, the voting machines type things that we use from the state are going to have to be replaced anyway. There was some issues, so there would be cost at some point, and starting over with a new processing machine would be a valid time. This would be a valid time to do it, I guess. So, but there was also discussion in the committee that if the cities were to adopt this along with the borough, that there could be some cost sharing involved and such. But it wasn't clear at all, the fiscal note on this.
Is there further discussion or?
Just one
Yes,
thing.
Councilmember Cease.
If it was brought that we said yes, we would like to go for it, and then the cost is way too much for us, can we back out of it? I mean, it's over it. Who has the final say?
The resolution before you tonight is simply a support resolution for the borough to pursue their
Right.
So it'll come
vote-by-mail
back.
option.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no commitment.
Right.
I'm just going to say that I am going to vote against it. I think that the timing is concerning for some of the public, just with everything going on with the pandemic, and I would like to see, especially since they're not even enacting this until potentially far into 2021, I think that there needs to be more education and outreach with the communities, but that's why I'll be casting my vote. Councilmember Buckland?
I understand what you're saying, and I get that it's going to be into 2021. I am concerned though if Vice Mayor McClure is saying that that we need to show support to our assembly if that is coming if that's coming to the assembly soon.
Vice Mayor
Yes, this coming Tuesday, this ordinance is about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it would be in.
So we kind of, if we're gonna, this is the time to offer support.
Thank you. Councilmember Buckland?
I will be voting in support of this because I do think that even if this is, I think the pandemic's gonna change our world. It's adjusting the way we're looking at everything. So I was surprised with the numbers of Anchorage, of how many people actually voted, and their turnout for vote by mail. So I see that as possibly the way, more likely the way of the future that's gonna happen. And I know it already does exist now where you can pretty much vote by mail if you request a absentee ballot. However, if like Vice Mayor McClure said, I would like to show our support to the Assembly that this should be where we should be moving to in the future.
Councilmember Osenga?
And I would just say, you did say this was a hybrid. There would be other alternative, there would be other ways to vote, it's not going to be just strictly vote by mail.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Councilmember
I
O'Connor?
would also like to point out that a lot of the redoing that handicap ramp on the side of the building was also because of voting and access to voting. So if this is going to expand voting to more people and access to more people, I'm way in favor of it.
Is there any further comments? People are ready to take a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 20-041. Buckland,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
No.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 20-043, authorizing the city manager. Go ahead, Madam Clerk, I'll let you read it into.
Resolution 20-043 is authorizing the city manager to reclassify the incumbent building inspector to a range, inspector 17.5 to 19.5 to 21 to 20, and change the title to official, and to establish building and fire inspector 18 to 20 appropriating funds.
I move for the approval of Resolution 20-043.
Second?
City manager, did you want to present the resolution?
Yes, so we had this prepared and ready for submission at the first meeting in March. And obviously, all of this other stuff transpired. The building official, so when we hired the new fire chief, and the chief's here, we can actually probably detail this better than I can.
Before you get started, I did want to ask if there would be a conflict of interest with me being at the diocese with this, since the position would be managed by my husband, as fire chief.
I'll make a ruling on that. I think, I can pull it out, but it says you have to have a substantial indirect or direct financial conflict of interest. And you're not talking about your husband's position. Are you in any way impacted financially by either approving or this resolution being failed at this time?
No.
Okay, well, I'm gonna rule that no conflict exists, but there's also an opportunity for council to question that ruling.
I just have a question on I don't know if we can say who it is, to say, because I don't know who this person is.
Sure, it's currently our building inspector is Stefan Nielsen. There's a long history. We had an engineer at the city. Former Mayor Dave Squires was actually trained.
Then that's just answer the question.
Okay, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
okay.
have
I don't-
any impact
no.
to the Craig
Yeah.
Council?
Then I don't.
Okay.
That's all
Sorry.
I wanted to know.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
So maybe would you rather kind of walk through that history, or?
Yep, I'll try my best. Just trying to dig up some of the, Madam Mayor, is it okay if I?
Yes, please. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Just trying to give a little bit of history. I was trying to dig up some. So the building and fire department has not requested any new positions, and I could find at least 30 years. I actually found Dave Squires' application from '84, but
Wow.
previously the city engineer, which is still technically on the books for the city, has not been filled in at least 12 years. That was the building official. When that person resigned, I believe it was, when that person resigned, that position wasn't filled, and the building official was left in limbo, and the fire chief at the time took that on. And it had stayed on up until January of this year. That role is not a typical fire chief position. That's a very specialized knowledge and experience based in constructions and trades, electrical, plumbing, very, very specific job function, and didn't feel that it was my duty to take on a role that really you would be hard pressed to find any fire chief in the country that has those abilities, skills, and knowledge. It's just not what we do.
Other than just fire inspection
Other than
systems?
fire inspection, but that particular building official role. So coming to you, right now, we really pride ourselves on our customer service, our fast turnaround times. If you live anywhere outside the city limits and you have to submit your plans to the state, they were at least 6 months out of getting plan reviewed and for you to start your project. We say 10 days, and usually it's much quicker than that. However, we're starting to really fall behind on our plan review, or things are going to be missed because we're trying to get things out to the customers, the builders, the contractors, the citizens, because of the influx of building and construction going on. I know it sounds like the economy's so bad with the COVID. I'm telling you, not in our world. The building and construction is just booming and it's out of control. We haven't added a position in over 30 years, but I guarantee you we've added quite a few buildings and residences in 30-something years. Right now, we talked about Stefan, our building inspector is overwhelmed, just flat out overwhelmed. Really looking at burnout, and that's a position that would be very difficult to fill his shoes. Not that I'm just trying to fight for one person, but he's a great asset to this city. I know you probably want just a few stats. It's really difficult to pin numbers on Stefan and the building official or building inspector, because so much is in and out of the office and telephones, and I would have to hire someone just to follow him around and clocking everything he does. But I'll give you real quick, I don't want to delay this too much. Just since January 2nd up until Friday, 63 building inspections have been performed. 13 of those were done via kind of a virtual, over the phone and FaceTiming during COVID. So we're making those work. If we expect anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, that's a minimum for his inspections, not counting scheduling them, logging them in the computer. Let's just say 1 to 3 hours, I average that for 2 hours. That's 126 hours. That's 3 straight weeks of work without even anything else. We're doing this continuing education, making other contacts, answering phone calls, talking to architects. He's quite busy. Each project, say a single-family dwelling up to the Gateway Hotel, so single-family dwellings, a minimum of 20 inspections that has to be done on that facility, or on that house. Plan review, foundation, footing, framing, electrical, plumbing, rough and finals, vapor barrier, sheetrock, insulation, mechanical, fire alarms, sprinklers if it has sprinklers, and then your final CO. So it's a lot, right? Then you get Gateway Hotel that is quadruple that, because you've got ongoing inspections throughout the entire project. So this position would help free him up a little bit, where he can concentrate more on the plan review side and really make sure we're not missing anything. I feel like that's a spot that if we really dig ourselves into, it takes so much of his time away. The phone's constantly ringing, he can't answer, either answer calls or do his plan review. So I want him focusing on plan and then the larger projects. We've got those 30-something homes in Zimmerman's about to start, releasing those. There's so many projects on the board right now that we know about, much less what we don't know about. We've made this also a dual fire and life safety inspector because, again, nothing's changed in 30 years. But our roles and our responsibilities have, and my role as a chief and the role of my deputy chief have now to almost full-time fire inspector. That does not allow us to do administrative work, budget work, big picture vision, or wrenching on an engine. I had to go work on our ladder trucks Friday, spent all day doing that, had to put off some inspections. We're mandated by law to do, or by city code, we're mandated to do all hotel, motel lodges, B&B lodges, liquor license renewals, and then the marijuana establishment. So that's by law or by code. By law, being a deferred agency, we're supposed to be doing all assembly, educational, institutional, R4 and R1. That includes assisted living apartments and hotels. I'm not sure where to find the time to do all those, to be honest with you. I mean, we barely can keep up with the 153 B&Bs that we did. I think it was 20 of the R1s. Because you've got the scheduling, the entering the report, you got the re-inspection, and then the re-inspection again. So we need time for myself and the deputy chief to do our jobs, to be fire chiefs, to recruit and retain, give public education to local clubs, to work on the station maintenance, hose station hydrants, do things that we're supposed to do as firefighters and fire chiefs, instead of all, I really just get swamped by the fire inspections, and it's really starting to affect our job performance to the fire department. While this person wouldn't alleviate all, we're still going to have fire inspections to do, because they can't handle it all either. It would greatly reduce the workloads where we could focus on bigger picture items. Any other questions?
I have a question for the city manager. That was very helpful. So, we used to be concerned as about a council where if we added a new position, then it would be in perpetuity in PERS. And even if we took that person away or dropped that position, we would have all this backlog of finance. But since we're in the new tier, that is no longer, would be a ramification, correct? So
Correct.
say we got everything going and we had the economy drop off and this position was no longer necessary, there wouldn't be a penalty.
So there is on the ones we eliminate, because they're probably old, under the old tiers.
No,
and
but I mean
adding
with
a
the new
So with the
position.
new one, no, that's under the new tier, it's different.
But his previous position.
Previous positions, like if we take one out.
So he's moving from one position to another.
No, we're adding an additional position and upgrading him from building inspector to a building official.
So what I'm just trying to clarify is this new position that's being added, so the building and fire inspector is not held to the old
Right,
rules,
correct,
is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
And so it's technically upgrading the current position into a higher classification and then backfilling with the actual, it's kind of combining the fire inspecting with the building inspecting. Because right now, that's not really the case.
Councilmember Buckline?
I'm confused because I thank you for everything you do, first of all, because I understand and I see it a lot, and we see comments and everything about inspections and things. The first thing I'm concerned about is, one, you say that Stefan is swamped doing what he is doing. Now we're adding to his position. And you are swamped doing what you need to do. I don't feel like, in my mind, that's the right solution, because you're adding work to someone else who is already swamped in doing what he's doing. So you said, Stefan has a lot on his plate, hard to answer the phone, hard to get things done, but you're adding more to his plate. But is that the right
So I'm not
solution?
adding any more, I'm sorry.
Because you're increasing his ability to now do fire inspections, right?
So I'll let you clarify.
Yeah.
So no, so Stefan would move into a building official role. He's going to be tasked with heavily on plans review, the customer service, and the consultations. There's at least 4 to 5, if not more, people come daily to talk to him about upcoming and future projects. And it may just be as simple as, hey, I'm looking at building this shed, what do you think? And he's great, so in theory, I was going to have all the Larry Harmons and everybody come in here and talk. Obviously can't do that, but they love to be able to sit down and just spend an hour with him and go over the codes and say, okay, well, what can I do and what can't I do and why? So he's going to focus on that. The building fire inspector, building/fire inspector, is going to be the runaround. They're going to go do the physical inspection. They're going to go to the house and say, yep, the footing's here, it's per the architect's drawings. They're going to do those.
So that's, you're proposing to add a new position, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
A totally new position.
Yes, sir.
And I think to make it clear, so when the previous fire chief vacated, he was a building official like Dave was, filling these weird niches that not many candidates have, right? So Clinton doesn't have any building official experience other than fire, and like you're trying to fill a position that doesn't have those qualifications, and I don't know that you would find one. So Stefan has been acting building official because he is certified, he is a building official, he meets all the state requirements. So he's been wearing like 3 hats this whole time and getting paid by the city for that duration. Does that make sense? Not. So what we're doing is, under our codes and our process, we're reclassifying him to what that position should be. He'll still be able to assist with the inspections, but he primarily, we don't, so I mean, I guess it's good for you to also understand the alternatives if you don't approve this. So if you don't approve the changing and addition of this, I'm either gonna have to go out and contract for a building official, which means sending plans out. It takes time, it takes process, it's expensive. How do we pay for that? Is the client supposed to pay for that? Most places they do. So like on Tom's new hotel, that would probably run about $80,000 for plan review. We have an in-house person that's just one project he does. And then if you turn it to, if you don't want the additional inspector, I'm probably going to contract and find a fire inspector / inspector because our workload is just too much. I don't foresee that slowing down in the next several years with the projects on our to-do list and hopefully the community to-do list. I see that this is a bare minimum to get what we're doing now by.
Councilmember Buckland.
There's 2 concerns I have. One is that these are 2 positions, but only one amount that's in the resolution. So we don't know what each position is. As far as I'm looking at the last budget, I already did get a raise in salary from the last budget. I'm not sure yet. We still have to look at the budget. I'm pretty sure there was a raise in salary. I had gone through and studied that budget pretty well. So one, I think we might be looking at maybe coming back and bringing some more information on what the two positions are, breakdown in the money wise. The other portion is, I appreciate what you said about what are the people paid, because we look back looking at fees and either B&B fees and are we really charging what we're charging for inspection going on, and are we, where do we meet in the middle on that? So maybe we need to look back at assessing fees, but I think maybe this is a little early with not as much information, and we could have a little bit more to make a better decision on how we're going to mitigate some of the fees and work that in a little bit better. Like I said, the budget piece was one because there was an increase. I'm almost very positive that there was an increase in the building inspector's salary from the last budget.
I'm sorry, Mayor. The budget or in the Gov study?
In the budget.
So I can clarify. So the employee we're talking about is a high tenured employee. He's been here a long time. He's an external equity employee, which gives a 10%, and he's getting 10%. So he's at kind of the maximum exposure for an employee in the classification he currently is, but he's getting in the budget that difference that puts him into the new job classification. So it's basically a promotion to get what he's currently being compensated through the process.
So you're saying you're adding a fire inspection job, a job title, as a building and fire inspector for $99,133.
Correct, just for that piece. And the building official, it's already in the budget as it's currently allocated from the salaries. I don't know if that helps.
That was covered.
So there isn't really that's why you don't see any kind of an increase in the pay, because he is getting, I don't like to talk about specific employees, but there is justification with where the current compensation is where we're proposing the new classification, and it does line up with the study.
I have one quick amendment I just want to get off the table. So the 5th whereas clause, it just says vacant deputy fire chief. I just want to delete vacant because that's filled. So I don't know if we have a second.
I'll second that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, and I'm sorry, some with emails got crossed.
No, you're fine.
The original, the one you should have gotten denied though.
We're fixing it. We got it. Yeah. So I don't know if we could just call for a vote, please.
Voting on that amendment to remove the word vacant. C?
Yes.
Kreis,
Yes.
Olszewski,
Yes.
Bachwan,
Yes.
Leclerc,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes. So, Councilmember Buckland.
I appreciate all the work that you put into this. Unfortunately, I will not be voting in support of this. The reason why that I will not vote in support is I don't think we should be adding positions at this time. I think we should revisit what we are charging for inspections to businesses to see if we can shoulder that off of the taxpayer more and onto the business for that as an expense. It wouldn't have to be exponential, but there could be a little more research into what we're spending, spending on the time that we're putting in for inspections, like you said. So can you, maybe there's, is anybody paying anything for, what do people inspections right now?
Well, and I also might ask, the question is, people do pay for plan reviews. That's outlined in the IBC, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So our building permit is just a set fee, and it's a percentage of your construction project. And that includes plan review from us, that includes the electric plan review, the public works plan review, community development plan review, and then all of your inspections that go with it. So it's a screaming deal in Seward to have a construction project. As far as other permits or fees, currently, the only fee that we charge is our $47.29 an hour inspection fee to lodges for their lodging and hotel establishments. We are not set up currently for any other fees. We did mention when that whole B&B thing started with P&Z that we would like to do a $100 flat fee for that, and just about got ran out of town. So I would love for your support when we come asking for fees, because when we adopt the 2018 codes here soon, I definitely want to be putting in 4 fees. Right now, the community, they do kick back hard on that, but I 100% thank you and for your support on having some fees.
Councilmember Buckland.
I think we just didn't really understand at that point really what things were going, what it was going into, right? Because when you say that, okay, well, if this should be what it's costing and this is what we're charging, then that's information, that's more information. When we're just saying, well, we're just gonna charge you this fee, but you're not telling telling people why you're charging them this fee, that's different. And actually that fee that was going to be charged was an application fee. It then only got worked in to be the building inspection fee. So just to clarify that, it started off as an an application fee, and then moved over because they ended up not charging an application fee and moving that fee over to just being the fire inspection fee or life and safety.
Councilmember Cease.
Okay, so built a $500,000 home, and my neighbor built $800,000. Their inspections are more than mine because of the cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I might just say I'm going to vote in favor of this because I want to make sure that as we move forward, there's no impediment to business and development. So, we are going to be looking closely at our budget. And normally I'd wait on this position, but I think now is the time that we support our local businesses. So that's why that's why I feel like I have to vote in favor of this. Madam Clerk. Oh,
Yeah, one more
Councilmember
thing.
Cease.
Of course, I wasn't doing the building, but I know that Stefan has been very, very busy. And I know it takes a long time to get some of these permits because you can't get to them. And I think that I will vote for it because I think he needs help.
Any other comments? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of resolution 20-043. Bachwan,
No.
Olszewski,
Yes.
Kreis,
Yes.
Leclerc,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Now we're on to other new business items. First on the
Thank you.
agenda for that, thank you, is number 3, discuss the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Well, I should check. Does anyone need a break?
No,
Should
we can
just
get
power
there this
through?
way.
Okay. Other new business items, number 3, discuss the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission. Madam Clerk, are you able to speak to this item?
Yeah, essentially some years ago in 2016, I believe, the borough passed an ordinance that said eventually they were going to be reducing the number of seats on their planning commission, and that ordinance is coming to fruition in August this year. And what it means is that the city of Seward's seat as a home rule city is going up against the city of Soldotna's seat, one of them to be eliminated. So we have an opportunity, the person that is the representative for the city is Cindy Eklund. She's the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city, and she's been on the borough planning for
2009 when
20, yeah, I thought 08, but 2009 when she took Vice Mayor McClure's seat. So she's well qualified. Every 3 years her seat comes up, her term, and this year it's critical because Seward essentially has to fight to keep the seat on the Planning Commission. So it's sort of a dual request, is that one, that you direct me to go ahead and advertise as we normally would for the vacant seat. And the other part is that the city of Seward needs to make a strongest case possible to maintain the seat.
Are there any comments on this?
Well, having held that seat for about a year and a half until I got elected to the assembly, it's really important, I think, to have Seward have a seat there. There is also an East Peninsula seat, which for a time was held by someone, I think moves past now. I believe it's Cooper Landing, but within our district, you know. So we're sort of represented whether we're there or not. This came up a couple times when I was on the assembly. The ordinance to reduce the number of seats was after I was on, and it was Brandy Holmdahl that ultimately voted yes on this. I'll just pass the buck back and say it wasn't me. But there was discussion at the time, you know, Seldovia, it was a cost thing, because for Seldovia member to come over, they'd have to stay, you know, all that. And we kept pushing it back. So, it's really important to advertise, but if you know Cindy, encourage her to stay on. And then I would recommend a letter to Mayor Pierce from council saying that we strongly request that Seward be maintained as a seat. That I think that's really important.
Are there any further comments,
I
Councilmember?
think that they just shouldn't cut Seward out. There's too many things that Seward doesn't get because that we're so far out. I think we really have to write that letter.
Mayor, can I make a statement for the record, just to be clear? I serve routinely as a hearing officer for the Kenai Peninsula Borough, often reviewing appeals on the Planning Commission. So just for the record, I just want to note that I haven't reviewed any document. I'm not participating in any discussion surrounding the Planning Commission member retention or appointment.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
And I do believe that our Community Development Director and Ms. Eklund intend to go to the meeting with Mayor Pierce and present. I don't know if you want to hear from Jackie or not, but she did say if you wanted to hear from her, she would call in.
I think we recognize how important this position it is to Seward, and having representation on that board. So I think the first thing we'll do is direct the city clerk to advertise the vacancy with the deadline as submissions of June 8th. The council will review the application and put forth a recommendation. If I could get a second on that.
I'll second that.
I don't know if there's further discussion. You know, the one thing is, I think Cindy Eklund is doing a phenomenal job. We just need to follow our history and make sure that that's being open to the public as a whole, so that we can have applicants come before us and make that choice. So Madam Clerk, would you call for a vote, please?
Voting on the motion to direct the clerk to advertise. Cease.
Yes.
Buckbon.
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes.
Kreitz. Yes. Bosenga.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
that motion is approved.
And then I'll make a motion to direct the city manager or his designee to draft a letter of support on behalf of the city of Seward to accompany the recommendation which demonstrates the city's desire and need to remain on the planning commission, and have that be from council, myself as mayor and council. So if I could get a second for that.
I'll second.
Pick one.
Yeah, just choose.
So I my comments with that, maybe we can with some pretty specific points. I mean, I think we all realize the value, so we just need to clarify that pretty articulately in that letter and have that accompany the submission for the planning commission. So, Madam Clerk, could we call for a vote for that, please?
Voting on direction to the city manager. McClurk?
Yes.
Kreitz? Yes. Osenga?
Yes.
Buckland?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That is approved.
Next on the agenda is page 309. It's discuss creating a council budget committee. I put this on the agenda. We talked about as goals with the city manager, making sure that we had a comprehensive mid-session budget. And I also think that with all the COVID and the financial questions surrounding the CARES Act, and our budget shortfall with ramifications due to COVID, we need to have a budget committee sooner rather than later. I mean, as council thinks about if they'd be willing to serve on there, I think at some level, it would be nice to start meeting weekly, even if that's just for an hour a week. I know it's kind of short-staffed in the finance department, but just as we move forward, being really on top of things so there aren't any surprises that come back to council. So I wonder if there's any discussion surrounding that, or if there's people who are willing to serve. I think we're looking at 3 members. Councilmember Buckland?
I know you put this on. This has something that I put on for a long time ago, and we had pushed back, and then during the city manager review, kind of came out as one of the goals. So I was involved in the last budget process, and I will be involved in the next budget process, and I would love to serve on this committee. I'm very interested in seeing how we are going to spend the CARES funding, and being a representative of the council and the city of Seward on that committee to make sure those funds are distributed to the best of their intentions.
Is there anyone else that's willing to serve? Councilmember Osenga?
I would be interested, it would just depend on what day we were meeting. That's my only kind of holdback.
So the only concern, Councilmember Kreitz, that I have with you serving is I'm not sure if you're planning on running again. So while I think you would be an extremely valuable asset, and I'm willing to discuss that as council, like as we're moving forward into the ongoing budget, I don't know, would you be willing to be maybe a substitute?
Yeah, that would be.
Would that be fine? Okay. Is there, is there anyone else willing to serve?
I don't think I should at this time.
And Dale's not here, member.
I mean, I was thinking I would be on the committee, but I don't want to insert myself.
No,
Okay. Councilmember Buckland.
I think it would be beneficial for you to be on there as well. Just as I said, we were involved in the last budget and will be involved in the next budget. So it would make sense that at least us would be on there to go through the mid-cycle and then into the next budget cycle.
So let me ask the clerk, because I think it would be helpful to have an alternate, but could that alternate get the same information and just not attend those meetings?
Yes.
Okay, just we wouldn't be going asunder of public, Open Meetings Act or anything?
No, I don't see why not.
Okay.
That's all public information.
Yeah, because we're going to be posting
Yeah.
this. Okay. So I'll appoint Councilmember Buckland, Councilmember Osenga, and myself and to the committee, and then also Kreitz as an alternative. Thank you all for being willing to serve.
Can I clarify, Matt?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, that automatically has a sunset date of, would be December 31st, 2020, and then later in the year, we can just pencil it.
That's fine.
To move that forward.
Yep. And I think, Councilmember Senga, did you have a comment?
Sorry, I was reading this, I can't find it now. Fine.
Okay. And I have said it, there's no expenses with this budget committee. So I don't think we need to vote on it. I think just myself as appointing.
Right.
And we'll move forward. And then maybe we'll work through the clerk and we'll work through the city manager, not to add more burden to the finance department, but maybe when we can start getting these going.
So you did say the finance department is limited, but we do have an accounting 2 position advertised. We have filled the AP clerk. So if we hire the accountant, other than the director, all positions are filled.
Okay.
So, and everybody's being trained and up to speed, so they're coming along nicely. And I have, one of the things I was asked to do was to inquire about interim oversight, which has been, it seems really available and easy to do that with managers, whereas on the finance director side, especially in Alaska, is not an easy task. I've reached out to AML, to several other finance directors, to private entities, and I'll try to bring you back something that might be a good process for us to do in the interim.
Okay, thank you. That sounds great. Next on the agenda is informational items and reports. Included in our packet is the ongoing city project and goal list. Are there any comments from council? Seeing none. Next on our citizen comments. Madam, do you have any, or are we calling anyone?
I don't have anyone.
Okay. And then next on the agenda are council and administrators' comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start off with you, City Manager Mazzaros, if you had any comments.
Let me look at my notes here. I had some updates on the things we talked about at the last meeting, but I think, the items with Doug, I don't think I missed any. The chamber report, Jason kind of clarified that a little bit. We did do some investigation into the campground. The chamber director arranged a meeting with the KOA owners, myself, and some of the staff. Our direction to them was talk to council, because it's kind of a weird to bring forward. So if a council member wishes to see that pushed or promoted, we did discuss items around that. The corrections officer was asked about, because that's been advertised forever. Part of that is that's part of that core salary analysis that's severely under market, as are dispatchers. So there's a couple positions that just are not competitive, and that's definitely one. It is advertised, and that email came out to you to explain where we market that. And I think a lot of that's just the market pay for that is not competitive. And those are identified in the salary. So the salary component, I need to reach out to Joe Ellen. We do have that kind of at a place where we need to bring it back. And I do want to acknowledge that our SBEA union voted to table that until we have more clarity financially. I know that is on my really immediate to-do list, because we have very valued employees and I want to see that come to fruition. So we're working hard to get that done. And then the other 3 projects will be scheduled out and brought to you. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I'll start with Councilmember Kreitz.
No, I just want to thank everybody for wearing their masks and social distancing. It's been extremely busy the last 2 weekends, so I think we've been a good example to all the visitors.
Councilmember Osenga?
I was going to say thanks to all the people that came in and talked to us for the presentations tonight. It was pretty helpful information given to us. Thank you to all the people that are volunteering in our community to help others that might need some help. That's a great thing. And I did not have a senior graduating. All my kids are grown and done graduated, but I will say what I did see, I thought the city put together a very great, awesome helpful program to all of our, and tribute to all of our seniors that graduated this year, and congratulations to them.
Very nice, thank you. Councilmember
I also want to thank about our, all the citizens of Seward, how they came to the parade, how they honored all of the kids, the pictures that they put up. That was Brian, Jason, James, and AJ. Put those pictures up. My only regret, they didn't leave them up long enough.
Oh.
I just thought they shouldn't have taken it down the same week. But I was so excited. It was, and all the kids, they loved having everybody on the streets watching them, congratulating them. If you talk to any of them, they all said it was, even if they were regular ones, that this was a special issue. So I just thank everybody for that. And other than that, I guess so.
Councilmember Buckline?
I too enjoyed the senior photos being hung in downtown. That was really uplifting. And actually my favorite was Christy Terry and Daisy Terry's. And I had to ask what the story was about the Cheetos. I saw the senior parade as well, and that was amazing. And I was like, there's a tsunami! And then I remembered it was the parade, but that was really cool that the city did that. And thank you to the linemen who put those all up. I wanted to say thank you to our city manager, Scott, and for his service, and happy Memorial Day, and thank you to all the veterans and their service. My brothers, my uncles, my nephews, and thank you for all of their service to our country. I will be diligently watching the CARES Act funding. I'm very interested into seeing where that goes, how that funding is going to be available to our city and what we're going to do with it, and the positive and amazing things that we can possibly do with that funding. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McClure.
Thank you. I'll reiterate what Christy said, Mayor Terry said about, it was wonderful to hear good news from Providence and to see that debt reduced, and and it was really great to hear from the fire chief and just the discussion about, yes, we know there's a lot of building going on, and despite all the doom and gloom, things are progressing in Seward, and I think that's just wonderful. The parade, I got down to my mom's just in time to get her up and out the front door, and it was like the biggest deal for her. She was the valedictorian of Seward High in 1948, and I was the valedictorian in 1968, so we had two of us there, but it was just cool because a lot of the people knew her, and it was a big deal. So graduations, my brother just he's the principal, just about to retire. He's the principal at Kodiak High, and they actually had a graduation. There was social distancing. It took, oh my gosh, I think like almost 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, but everybody got to go across the stage, and there were speeches, and so they actually did it in their big, with 189 students or something, so that was exciting too. And I just want to remind people that just because it seems like there's no virus now, we still should be cautious, and we should be washing hands, and you'll see us still wearing masks, so. And I just want to tell you also, I should share, I had a dental filling thing, and to do that, you have to get the COVID test. And so Dr. Moriarty sends a referral, and I just want to tell you, if it's the swab thing, it's quick, it's easy, and don't be a wuss, it doesn't hurt really. And I was very impressed, and I just want to tell people, if you feel that you need to, or you're putting off a procedure because of that, within, like I got it Wednesday, I had the dental thing Friday, and I'm negative, but that wasn't the point. The point was people are afraid to do the test, and you should not be. So that's all I got.
I was just making some notes. I wonder if the Budget Committee obviously will be meeting about the CARES Act. Maybe having that committee look at the camping rates might be helpful to get some feedback on that. And then also maybe with the salary study, maybe the Budget Committee would be able to help administration with that. I do want to thank the linemen for hanging the banners. And also the high school. The high school really did a great job under the circumstances. the parents, which I'm gonna name a few names, but if I don't name you, I'm so sorry. Sarah Spanos, I know that Bingit Nielsen, Ryan Moriarty, a lot of those parents, Nita Hollingsworth, a lot of those parents got together and made sure those things happened. People at the school, Christy Jordan, Mr. Walker, Rebecca Starr, all the teachers just really put together a great program and went above and beyond. And then finally, you know, I know that since there's no economic ramifications to us opening up, where we want our businesses to stay open, we want them to remain healthy, we want to do what we can to make sure that there's no businesses being closed in Seward. I understand people wanting to take more time to open up these meetings. We are doing our part, wearing masks, social distancing, but if the state moves to phase 5 in the next couple weeks, I think we really need to just be aware that I think at some level it's time to open up open up these meetings, have it at a larger venue, we can social distance, because I think those things are important also. But I understand everyone balancing the need to make sure that people are making a living and having there be lots of options. And again, just to highlight, if you'd like to come and testify physically at a meeting, that option is open. And you could always ask the clerk to give you a call during public comments, and when she calls, you say, you know what, I have nothing to say. You know, you can feel free to be on standby. We're happy to just have people utilize all those avenues. So next on the agenda is executive sessions. So looking to the attorney, are those close enough in topics where we can make a joint motion for both of those at the same time and have you be included? Or do we need to have one come out from one and then make a motion on the other?
I think we can amend the topic to just be executive session on pending litigation, including but not limited to, and then the Bradley Lake litigation. That should be adequate.
Okay, Councilmember Buckland?
I'll make an amendment to switch the title to updated
pending or ongoing
pending,
litigation.
And I will add, we should say pursuant to Seward City Code provision 21030B3, just to be sure that we're referencing the
21030B3.
Perfect.
Yeah, nailed that.
And so just to check on your motion, we have a motion and a second, and that does include the city attorney?
Yes.
Is there anyone else you'd like to include? Do we want the city manager in there?
Yeah.
Okay, city manager and the city attorney. Okay, thank you. So we'll call for a vote. Do we need a 5-minute break before we
Yes,
start?
please.
Okay, so we'll, I
Cease.
thought cease seconded. So we'll vote on that, but then give ourselves 5 minutes to use the restroom. Madam Clerk?
Voting on moving into executive session. Kreitz?
Yes.
Buckland?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Bosenga?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
So you recessed at 9:17.
9:17? And we give people 5 minutes to use the restroom.